Welcome, EMF Warriors. This is Mr. Spock here today. I have a wonderful guest on. His name is Daniel Georgiev. If I said that correctly, Daniel, is that correct?
Yes, it's great. It's great.
Yeah. You are from Bulgaria, if I am correct as well.
Yes, this is in Europe. In Europe,
Excellent. Yeah. What city are you living in there in Bulgaria?
Sofia. This is the capital city.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, so Daniel is the person behind the Iris program. I use it on my computers. I've used it actually for about a month after watching the Biohackers Lab and seeing all the details behind what Daniel has done with this program. I'm like, I have to get some really good control over my screens. So I wanted to have Daniel on to talk with us about what we do. Now, as an EMF warrior and having been in the quantum biology groups for well over 5-6 years, and having been a previous biologist, I know that the blue light coming off your screens is a major hit to your health. And in my personal world, as a lot of you know, I've had eye issues going back even into my early video game days back into the 1990s, where I would have blood leakage in the back of my eyes and all kinds of problems. So having Daniel on here is just an amazing resource to me personally. So I'm going to get into some questions that I'll be a little biased probably from my own background. But I actually, right now, I'm outside and I'm in sunlight, so I don't have my blue blockers on, but normally I do have my blue blockers. And my blue blockers, my glasses I wear are they block out like 400 nanometer to 550 nanometer light, and they work very effective. And I know they are super effective because when I'm just walking around the home and I have the blue blockers on, I start getting tired. I feel like the melatonin's building and I get a wonderful sleep every night. So this leads into my first question. If I just use Iris and I don't use blue blockers, um, I noticed that I still, or even Flex or any programs, I noticed it's not as perfect or right on as my blue blockers, but I kind of attribute that more to the background lighting. So in my space, there's blue light emissions that happen from my background lighting as well. So in combination, I do use blue blockers with my Iris program and with my previous Flex program. And I'm wondering if that's a good thing to do, or if you, like personally, you use just Iris alone and you're not wearing blue blockers. I'd like to know the answer to that.
So the problem comes when you use LED lights in your home because they emit a lot of blue light. If you use the standard non-energy saving light bulb, the Edison light bulb, you don't have this problem because the lighting is like it's low core temperature, right?
Right.
And it doesn't emit so much blue light. But if you use fluorescent or some LED lighting in your home, it's good to wear also blue blocking glasses. The
Yeah.
problem with the blue blocking glasses is that they block only a small portion of the blue light and the wavelength of the. They block something like close to the UV lighting, right? Which is which is maybe the most unhealthy part of the spectrum, right? And the most damaging to the retina, to macular degeneration, and to the melatonin secretion. But Iris actually is more effective if you use it on your PC because it blocks all the blue light spectrum and also some of the green light, which also emits a blue light. So basically, the backlight it's not only blue is blue, green is green, and red is red. Some part of the green light is also emitting blue light. It just works like this, the semiconductors of the
I see.
backlight.
Yeah, that's really interesting because you brought up green light. The blue blockers I have actually do go up into the green light spectrum. Even though you're saying through computers the green emission is still could be more of a blue emission. What's interesting on the biology side of that, what you just said, is that they've even found in certain studies that even green light can diminish melatonin production. Just the standard nanometers, like between more 475 to 550. So I find it pretty intriguing that and wonderful that your program actually goes to that length to block all of these, the spectrum range a lot higher. Like when using flux in the past, I've needed to use my blue blockers, I've noticed, because if I just use flux standard and look at the screen and time goes on into the evening, I won't get tired. But with your program, I've noticed using a few times without my blue blockers on, I still get pretty tired at night, and I think that's one of my gauges for it. So I'd like to know your insights on like other things you've done, like to improve upon like what other programs have done, like Flux.
So for me, I made the blue light thing because the guys from Flux didn't respond to me at the beginning. I wanted manual control and lower values of the spectrum, and they didn't respond to me. I actually used Flux a lot, but I didn't get the features I wanted, and I just decided to add the blue light thing. But I think the bigger problem of the monitors and the eye protection part is the pulse width modulation of most monitors. Also the reflections from the screen and the whole problem behind looking at flickering screens.
Yeah. Can you actually talk to people a little bit about pulse width modulation? Because obviously it gets a little complex with the physics and how the information rides on the different wavelength. Well, the pulse width modulation itself, because it's an interesting like broken up waveform, and try to like explain how you think that pulse width modulation can influence like eye strain, for instance.
So the way the modern monitor works is by turning on and off all the time. This is done because the semiconductors of the backlight will burn if this is not done. They need to cool off. The LED lighting needs to cool off. This is true for monitors, for lighting, and for everything. So you need to turn them on and off at high frequency, and our brain doesn't perceive this. But our eyes are really fast at changing the iris size. So what happens is something like if you try to turn your the switch in your room of the light on and off, you see how your iris starts to open and close. For example, when the lights are off, your iris is very open and the black in your eye is very big. When the lights are on, the iris is the black in your eyes is small, right?
Yep.
And what happens when you look at the monitors is something like a contraction, something like you're in the gym and pumping your muscles, but with your iris, it starts contracting and changing size. And this is actually what causes us to feel eye strain. This is why you don't feel eye strain when you read some book or magazine or even a ink monitor.
Are there any screens that have like a built-in like into their hardware that some screens are more superior over others, like in what we get today? Or there's really no, is it really hard for us to test and find screens that might minimize this effect, the pulse width modulation, to our benefit?
So the thing we need in our world is colorful ink displays with really high refresh rate, but this is not possible. So the pulse width modulation is actually because the cheapest way to control the brightness of the monitor is to change the frequency of the flicker of the backlight. And the lower the frequency of this flicker rate, the bigger our iris will contract and the more we will feel eye pain. So today's eye-friendly monitor use something called DC dimming. This is a different way to change the brightness, which doesn't change the flicker rate of the monitor. And the bigger the flicker rate, the lower the contractions and the less eye strain. So we need monitors with really high refresh rate, not this refresh rate of the video card, not 60 and 75 hertz, but it's something like 20,000 hertz.
I see. Yeah, wow. So yeah, actually talking about that, like a lot of gamers like myself, we will play games typically in like a 75 hertz rate on the monitor, and for crispness, to get the
Yes, but this is different. This crispness is the refresh rate of the video card, and
that's right.
it's not the actually physics of the turning on and off of the backlight. We don't see this. It will be strange to see the flicker rate of the backlight because our brain is not so smart, I
Yeah,
guess.
so here's a question. So if a lot of people have reported though at like 75 hertz on the regular video card flicker or refresh rate on the video card, they've reported when they use that, they feel like they get headaches or they get more eye strain, they get all these other elements. Do you think this refresh rate somehow could have an influence to the actual flicker itself, like at the higher pulses each minute?
No, the problem there is another. It's because your eyes need several milliseconds to focus on the screen, and when the picture is constantly changing, you don't have so much time, and you strain your eyes to focus on the things. Our eyes move on the screen with something called cascades, and you need uh, crisp edges to focus on the screen. It's not like you're looking on the whole picture, but you're always looking at one dot on the screen. And if this dot is moving constantly, it's harder for you to focus on the screen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Typically, the consumption of games goes on for several hours as well. So it might just be the effect of a person playing a game for a really long time is why they're getting the headache rather than the video card refresh rate. Um,
Mm,
yeah,
yes.
I don't know if you've seen the same thing because we're both doing this in the industry, and it's interesting watching the behaviors of different people as they're playing, because we have to sometimes play games for 3, 4, 5 hours at a time and stretch. Of course, we take breaks and such, but yeah, like having your software at a place where you're just constantly consuming a video monitor, especially at the right time of day. So, as the sun is setting and you really don't need that eye strain anymore, this is like a godsend to a lot of people, like your software that you've provided for people. Um,
Yes.
the the next question I want to ask you about is different features you have built into your particular software. And the first question here is that, do you suspect or you think down the road a lot of hardware, just standard hardware we get off the store, should be built with your type of software into it? Or is that even conceivable that, as we move into the future and we realize this is hitting our melatonin in our eyes and giving us eye strain, why don't manufacturers just use your software, have that built into the hardware when we buy the system? That's what I'm wondering.
Yes, I definitely think that all our screens in the future will be orange during the night, which will be really strange if you think about this. it's it's not in the science fiction novels that our screens will be orange during the night, but this is definitely a possibility.
Yeah. What's cool is that when I've been using Iris and kind of playing around with a lot of the settings built into it. And I'm noticing when I kind of like wash out the colors a little bit more, I feel better. Um, and I'm wondering you know, if it's just me or like what settings you're using at home and what you prefer on your settings for your iris.
So the default setting of Iris, the health mode, is actually what I'm using and what I found with talking to a lot of doctors about the blue light and the brightness. And this is the thing that I recommend to people, and this is why it's the default mode. But for different people, I made different modes. For example, the sleep mode is to fall asleep faster, which removes all blue light. The biohacker mode also reduces the lightness of the screen during the night, which also improves the melatonin secretion for actual biohacking your rhythms.
Yeah.
You can use the movie mode, for example, to watch dark movies and be brighter, which is really interesting feature. And yes, all these things are packaged because at the beginning, Iris was 25 pages of settings. And when new user opened the program, it was like, what the fuck? What does
Yeah.
it think? And to make it more grandma friendly, I made it this way to have some presets.
Yeah, that's great. I noticed that like it's really important to at least set the brightness on the monitor all the way up to like 100%, and then use your program to reduce the brightness back down with these different modes. Is that correct?
Yes, this is maybe the most important thing for eye protection.
Yeah. So yeah, I've used the health mode as well. I really like that, and I can't believe like how effective it is, and you're actually offering this like I believe the health mode is built into the program for free. Like you can just download it and just start using it. Is that it?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. All modes actually are built for free. The pro thing is the sliders to move to customize it even more, and if you need.
Yeah. So I had a question come up from a member asking about if a lot of people now are using split screens or multiple screens at the same time, or maybe even doing split screen stuff.
Yes.
And there a couple of people were wondering if there's a possibility where you could have some of the split screen on with Iris and other part of the screen off with Iris. I don't know. That sounds like a pretty crazy request, but have you investigated any kind of like, different width or different screens themselves? Like if you have three monitors in front of you, and for some reason, if you're doing like what we do in video games, we want to have one screen perfectly calibrated for color to see what's it's looking like, and then maybe the other two screens that are running Iris on it for our own eye health.
Yes, that's right. This is what a lot of people actually are asking, and Iris has this feature to enable and disable it on different monitors if you have two or three. It's in the manage monitor page in the advanced view. Also, you have the overlay mode, which you can select part of the screen, something like a rectangle of your screen, which will be dimmed or not dimmed, for example, using Iris and not using. This is maybe the king of blue blocking software. There is nothing like this in the world. Not Flux, not anything, for
Yeah,
example.
that's great. So let's hear about your past story with your own eye health and what you've suffered, and like I want to hear like what you might be doing right now to maybe help your eyes. Like right now, this is what I do: is I get out into the morning sun and just like have the ambient light just come down from the unpolarized light come into my eye, not even it's coming in indirectly. It doesn't need to come in directly into my eye because light is so ubiquitous. So I do that to help my eye health, and I've noticed it improve over the course of years. I'm curious like what you've done, or if there's any tips that you might want even from me, what I've done for my eye health, because I've had a lot of like retinal rupturing in the back of my eyes from screens over the years as well.
So yes, this is one of the recommendation of the doctors to look at sunlight for maybe 10 or 15 minutes per day, because the screen light is not full spectrum sunlight, and the full spectrum sunlight has a lot of other wavelengths which are beneficial to us. But my story started basically when I was a game developer at one company. We were making games, and I had two monitors in my desk in the office. The lighting was terrible, and after 6 months of this, I started to feel a lot of eye pain. I started wearing sunglasses when I go outside like Batman. And
Yep.
after several more months, I started using eye drops, a lot of eye drops, like one whole, I don't know, back with uh, finished bottles I have of this thing, and it was terrible. I go After a year of this, I go to the eye doctor for the first time, and this was the point that I put glasses. And I was in shock because my vision was perfect my entire life. And at this point, I decided I'll fix my vision no matter what. Started reading everything, and this is how the beginning of Iris it was. Um, the first version of Iris was actually one program which just locked my screen every 30 minutes to force myself, because when I'm in the zone, I just can't force myself to get out of the screen, and the program was just locking my screen. And this was the first version of Iris, maybe 3 years ago. From this point, after a lot of talking with users and doctors and everything, the program right now it's really different. Maybe it also had the blink detection feature, which nobody uses. Also the break reminding, which almost nobody uses. But the blue light and the brightness thing and the pulse width modulation things are really, really awesome, and a lot of people use it in the world. More than 1 million right
Yeah.
now.
Now, is anybody else like trying to contact you, like other companies, to work with you? Is like what else is coming up on the horizon for you for this program? Because I think as we move forward and more people become aware of the blue light toxicity around us, you're probably going to have people knocking on your door all the time. So I'm curious, like it sounds like you're still continuing to support Iris and additional new features down the road. I'm curious, like if there's other people are getting a hold of you yet.
So right now, uh, we made a contract with a reseller in Japan, and it's distributing in whole Japan. Just today, I signed also for China some distribution agreement. But I like to have the freedom to go somewhere for 1 or 2 weeks without a computer and just don't do anything. I like this freedom, and this is why I don't try to make Iris a big company. I
I
don't
see.
big companies, and
Yeah.
it generates some nice profit. This is why the software is maybe a little expensive, because I answer personally to every email, and I can make it cheaper, but it will lose the personal connection.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Wow. So here's an interesting question I've had, and it might not even have an answer. But as I've noticed, as I'm using my computers through the years, if a different energy source kicks on in the home, for instance, like the air conditioner unit outside or something like that, you'll get a power loss or a power fluctuation in a big, like usually a change, right, in voltage through the house just for a moment. And these little amounts of voltage changes happen actually more frequently than we know, and in some areas the sine wave gets modified, and different harmonics can happen across the power grid and things like that. I'm wondering, I'm wondering if this has an influence back to us through looking at a monitor, or if the monitors themselves are built to like more withstand any voltage changes. And if they are built to withstand it, could maybe even like if you're in an area and you have your computer in there and you're just getting a lot of voltage power fluctuations all the time, could that actually have an influence on that screen, that we're our eyes are not able to pick up, but our own irises are definitely picking up and giving us more eye strain from?
So definitely there is some effects on the eyes, but I think the bigger effect is on our bodies, because these are magnetic waves, like, right?
Hmm.
This is physics, and so we're made of atoms, and this changing of the grid is actually, I don't know. I think it's really unhealthy for us as humans. But you can't live in a cave, right?
Well, I mean, we do a lot of things in EMF Warriors to try to, implement what we call EMF hygiene, where, for instance, instead of having your monitor 2 feet away from you, you might literally push it back another foot, knowing that the inverse square root law of physics is working in your favor, where just that extra foot could put you way more out of a magnetic field or an electrical field. And now instead of getting like 3, 4, even 10 milligauss of into your body of the EMF, you're only getting like a half milligauss at that point, or even less, or maybe no milligauss. So at least with the square root fall off of magnetic and electrical fields, some of these products can be mitigated pretty easily. On the flip side, with radio frequency EMFs and your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth and just all these things that are pulsing and pushing around through the air around us, it's really hard to mitigate unless well, really, that's why I'm on an Ethernet cord. I've cut the cord on the wireless, and I have the cord back again like it's 1999.
Yes, but this is actually really healthy. It's all this, our cell phones, our Wi-Fi. This is really unhealthy for our, I don't know. I think it's unhealthy for our bodies.
Yeah, and it's also like the blast of different frequencies that are coming in to the body, reacting, and like you said, it's more surface interactions as well. So like on certain quantum groups, people have talked about neck exposures actually, because your neck could have, let's say, blue light is coming off your screen and along your neck, like where your thyroid is, that could have an influence on thyroid production in there as well. So some people have even gone to the lengths of like wearing scarves in front of their computer monitors. So again, like your program, Iris, it's like, again, a really wonderful way to protect your surface interactions, not just your eyes. And you might find that interesting if you've never heard about that.
Yes, that's right. Because of the blue light reduction. Actually, the bigger the wavelength of the light, the less unhealthy it is. So it's the
Yeah.
bigger the wavelength, it's more healthy. Actually, plants and trees grow a lot more when they are uh, when the light is red, right?
That's absolutely true. That's why we perceive it as green, because they're really sucking up the red. And
Yes.
those wavelengths, I mean, that's a sauna for you. And you might not be aware of this, but your mitochondria in your body, that little batteries that are generating the energy for you, they love the red light, and they even emit back off of them uh, longer wavelength of red light as well. So like it's really interesting how all the physics, the biophysics, works inside of us, and we're using this technological physics and not even considering some of these health, biological ramifications. It's almost like I want doctors in the world to say, okay, let's look at your home environment for your health, right? And come in and say, are you running a program like Iris? Are you in EMFs? Are you doing these other things? And we're going to note all these things as part of our health evaluation of you. It's not just about what you're putting in your body or the lack of something you're putting in your body.
Yes, but well, if you think about this, most people don't exercise a lot, and this is way more unhealthy than any light or anything, because you need exercise, moving, and eating healthy. Right?
Yeah, I would say in short term, like looking at short term influences, exercise, of course, is super beneficial. People doing like, HIIT training and this sort of stuff. I mean, of course, keeping the body fit, the lactic acid generation has some benefits to the brain. There's, you can go on and on about exercise, but I view it more as kind of a short term thing, where long term, we use technology over the course of years, even decades, and the continual stress and the stressors to the body, to the cells, to the mitochondria, like all these things over the course of a longer period of time, is where I like to use the analogy of smoking, where
Yes,
you can
that's
you
right.
can smoke you can smoke for 2, 3, 5, 10 years, not even feel like it's even a problem. Even 50 years down the road, uh, you have people that still are doing fine cigarette smoking, right? But then, like at some point, certain tissues, certain cells might mutate. Things might happen, or within the mitochondria, you might get mutations, and then you get more potential for disease expression. And it's just like the long-term accumulation damage from all of the physics around us is just part of life, right? So to try to minimize that with software programs like Iris, with again EMFs, everything else is just something to be mindful of, to know if you suffer for risk, especially people with EHS or ES. If you're aware of, are you aware of the people with like electrosensitivities?
Yes, I know. This is one of the problems that I begin Iris with, and I try to make it something like sexy software, to
Mm.
because smoking, for example, is super unhealthy, but it in the movies it's sexy, and I try to make the orange screen and the red screen to be sexy, also to be different, to be something like an amazing person. And uh, this this is this is good if you think about this, because it's more healthy for people.
Yeah, and it's interesting when a person. I just want to mention this because I've used it, and I just thought about this. When using your program, if you go to a really crazy red version tint that really minimizes out a lot of light and brings down the color temperature, that is the first time you see it and you're working on trying to work on a monitor. A lot of people can't even like look at and see the fonts and the script or anything, and there's like this acclimation period of time I've noticed over the course of several days, about a weekend, using that at night and seeing and getting used to that low color temperature, and also the coloration. You actually can work fairly efficiently in your program, but I think people don't give it enough time to they see it for like a few minutes, or even just they try it for a day and it's like, it's too dark, I can't see anything going on. But like for you, the health version that you've put into it, that's just wonderful. You can see everything perfectly, and it's almost like I felt like the first week using it, I'm not sure if this is doing its job, blocking out all the blue light and the green light and everything, but sure enough, it worked better than Flux for me. So I don't know if you want to comment on user experiences where they've said similar things with certain modes they've used in your program.
Yes, and actually I made something new. I don't know, maybe last week. It's called the sleep transition. It's like, for example, Flux has the sunset and sunrise transition, and Iris also had this, but I also added the sleep transition, which is something like the middle of the night. There is even more blue light reduction and even more brightness reduction. For example, most old people, they don't stand in front of the PC whole night, and these are the people which have the problem with I don't see anything, right?
Right.
And this is in the free version, and all the night owls, all the young people which play games all night can benefit from this, for even more blue light reduction. So I really listen to the users a lot and try to make the best possible software for newcomers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've always wondered why more software doesn't take it, or like like we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation, why more hardware doesn't have this built into it, or we don't see more people just using filters like through their software, and it's like you've had to offer the solution to the public because other people haven't thought about it or they're not being mindful of it. But I really do think that you will have people knocking on your door in the next few years here, especially from the medical profession. But I think it's becoming so mainstream that there a lot of people, like even in our industry, are starting to pick up on the blue light issue and the blue light hazard just as a normal thing, because they can feel it, right? And they can feel it and see it with their eyes and feel like they have less eye strain.
Yes, it's something like the beginning of this, because if you think about this, Windows 10 has the nightlight feature, OS X has the night shift, and Android has the night mode, and all the big companies start integrating something like this on their screens. For example, some monitors start to integrate blue blocking modes with several clicks on the monitor surface, and it's going to be mainstream for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's just a matter of time. So this has been a wonderful conversation. I wanted to kind of leave it with you asking me if there's anything that you are wanting to know on the biology side that I might be able to share with you, because I've been poking around as really a hobby for the last 25 years in biology, since I used to be a biologist a long time ago. And uh, it is very true, like what you're saying earlier about the LEDs and the blue light temperature is super high, and then the flicker rate, like off our power grid, coming into our regular lights, and then the monitors we have, just all the artificial lighting we have. And of course everybody today has their mobile phone in their hand, looking at it with their head down, not looking at the person with the grocery cart in front of them as they get hit as they're walking forward, because that's happened to me in real life, where I was just pushing my grocery cart, and they were looking down at their phone, and the addiction aspect of this issue with the blue light frequencies is really really the part where maybe you'll find, I think you're going to find in the future, people will come to you and say, thank you for curing my 6-year-old son who was addicted to the computer or to his phone or to his tablet. And now that I put the filter on it, it seems like he cycles now and is not as addictive, and I can get him off the tablet and whatever he was doing on it. At any moment's notice, it's not like a problem, and it doesn't create a temper tantrum. So I think you're going to get more people like that thanking you for all these other health issues they never, that you might not even have considered, especially with the addiction element with the blue light.
Yes, this will be great. One question maybe is there something that I'm missing with Iris? What is something which I can add, for example, other colors or something from the biology side, which I read a lot of photobiology and a lot of light biology thing, but I'm not sure if I can't add something more, for example, during the day or something to control the emotional response of people. This is an area which I want to take Iris in the future.
Yeah, I would say that if anything, it would be my dream or wish would be a very smooth, and you might even have this or part of this. I know you do have part of this built into Iris, but more of a very smooth transition that really cycles with the sun. We're really thinking about what the sun is doing and the color temperature of the sun at this time of the day, and somehow matching the lighting environment around you to the sun indoors. Like that would be more reflective, that choice word there, more reflective of what's going on in nature. But of course the pulsing effect, like if the entire, for instance, the entire lighting system of the world, if we had gone back to DC power, and we're not on AC where we have the natural flipping of the hertz in there. If we would just work off of DC, like battery powered lights, where we're just not, it's just at 0 hertz, then that will mimic closer to firelight or candlelight or something natural. And then for technology, having this ramp from the morning, midday, evening, and having the same color temperature, and even the different types of colors that come in and out with the sun at these different times of the day. So, we get more IR component to the sun. We get more, of course, we can't do real UV because we probably wouldn't want to do UV through these things with how the UV could be affected. But there's so many components of light itself with and how people use them. Like I cringe when people put on their sunglasses because they're really altering the sunlight's unpolarized effect and making it more polarized as it comes and shoots into their eyes. So depending on the type of sunglasses you even wear can actually, I think, have a very detrimental effect to a person's health. And thinking of how we would normally be out in nature, trying to mimic that as much as we can in the off of our screens and in our internal indoor environments would be the best thing, I think, for our health in the long term.
Yes.
So like maybe down the road, like it would expand, like it just doesn't include screens. It actually includes like the Iris indoor environment. I'm just like,
yeah. on Mars when Elon Musk
right. Yeah, because you're going to need you're going to need an atmosphere on Mars regardless, right? And you're going to need the Schumann resonance on Mars, which that's what I think about too. Is if we're really planning on going to Mars, you're going to need a Schumann generator. You're going to need all these things to try to mimic what's going on Earth when you're living on Mars.
Iris on Mars. This will be great, actually.
But without that atmosphere, and you don't get the the different UV components that come in different times of the day. You don't get all of the light, different color changes through our atmosphere. On Mars, that's going to be the major problem. I think people living there, they're going to be crashing their health at a lot faster rate in comparison to everyone else on Earth, and NASA needs to be aware of that one. Trying to, like, again, maybe contact you for for getting some details. Like, here we go. I just linked you up with NASA to, like, try to get NASA to, like, change their ways with how they're using light. All
Yes.
right. Well, I think we're done here for today, unless there's anything else that I forgot to ask you about your program.
No, that was great conversation. Thank you for having me. And yes,
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much again for coming on, and in the future, I wish you luck with everything you're doing. And I expect like 5 years from now, you might even be semi-famous around the world for what you've been doing here to help everybody's health.
thank you.
All
Thank you.
right. All right. Thank you, Daniel. Have a good one.